Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, get ready for Election Mania 2016, featuring Hillary the Destroyer against Bully Boy the Donaldnator. Why are all the one percenters upset about the Westbard Sector Plan? NTSB says Metro has a learning disability. What's the solution? And why is the proposed White Oak Life Science Center on life support? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of the Montgomery County branch of the NAACP, Henry Hailstock, former membership director for the Maryland Republican Party, Phil Bell, Republican activist Nate Hauser, and former executive director of the Maryland Democratic Party and business consultant Rich Parsons. Stay tuned for 21 This Week next. Despite strong neighborhood opposition, the Montgomery County Council approved development of 1,200 residential units in the Westbard neighborhood of Bethesda. Even though the council's decision to upgrade the tired 1960s-era shopping center to a town center reduced the number of proposed living units in half, local residents weren't happy and were vocal in their opposition. Rich, disputes pitting residential neighborhoods against the government and developers flare up regularly in Maryland's largest and wealthiest county. The group called Save Westbard says the project will burden crowded schools and roads. They charge that Equity One and the county have colluded to impose an unwanted urban vision on a place they had expected to remain traditionally suburban. Is this dispute about the loss of suburban life, or the fact that the county has failed to develop its transportation systems and infrastructures?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but Casey, this is a very familiar story. The county has a commitment to smart growth, and it goes through all of these master plans and really looks for places to maximize density close inside the Beltway. Communities like this are exactly where the county, under the Maryland Smart Growth laws, is trying to concentrate jobs and housing. And neighbors still have to wrestle with this whole basic NIMBYist reaction every time the council tries to do this. I think it's very interesting this passed on a 9-0 vote. I think it really shows unity in the council in standing up to some of this. But every time you try to do a very high quality development with mixed use, you get the same pushback. I think residents just maybe don't understand the policies Montgomery County's had on the books for these areas. They're going to be developing not so much urban, but
yeah, it's not unusual.
But
I mean,
mixed
you look
use
in D.C. and you look in
yeah.
Virginia. The same thing happens in every community. They're slow to accept, change and growth.
But I want to go to Nate. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. The neighborhoods surrounding Westbard, though, are some of the wealthiest in the county, and it's difficult to have sympathy for the one percenters living there who complain that their neighborhood is too crowded. And it seems that from council member Roger Berliner's comments that the planning in the county is not done by plebiscite, and every 4 years our residents get to pass their own judgments. It sounds like he was tired of their complaints. What's going on here?
Well, I'll tell you, when I moved to the area after college, I lived in this neighborhood. I lived in Westwood Tower. So I know the community, I know the people, and I actually take issue with it being characterized as a one percenter issue. I think that whether you live in a $100,000 house or $1 million house, you have the right to have a vision for your community. You have the right to articulate what you want to see in your neighborhood. But I think it speaks to a larger issue in the county, and that is the one-party rule. You have a county council, as you pointed out, passed this unanimously, as they do with so many other things. There's a lack of sort of comprehensive discussion of these issues. I mean, even on this show, you have 2 Republicans and you have 2 Democrats, so we can delve into this issue. We can look at it from all perspectives.
We're fair and balanced, but I want to go back to.
But the county council is not.
Well,
and this is another point.
But this isn't really a partisan. This isn't really a partisan
thing. It seems
thing.
to me it's a development issue, and the fact that the county is changing, and there are those that don't want the county to grow and develop.
Right.
Phil.
Yeah, but is it, and I agree with Nate about issues related to one-party rule, obviously, but you've got to really ask yourselves, if you have a great community, it's going to grow. that's what's going to happen. And that's kind of the reason why a lot of these development fights really don't make much sense. You're going to have more people come in, they go to the schools, that's what happens. You can't expect maybe.
But Rich, couldn't this be counterproductive?
Well,
the decision to cut back the number?
Yeah,
development projections are based on density, and the number of units can support further development.
Yeah, and the problem is we often try to have it both ways. We try to design communities that are walkable, bikeable, transit friendly, transit serviceable, and then we don't actually allow enough density to drive the kind of investment that would make it look that way. What you end up with is a lot of aging strip malls, a lot of very auto-dependent community design that's really not what the market is looking for now. And you've got to have, unfortunately, this is what a lot of, I think, neighborhood groups don't really fully understand because they're not in this business, and I understand their point of view. But without a certain amount of density, you can't get the community to look and feel the way they kind of want it to and have all these amenities because there's not the economics to actually do it.
And let's face it.
We're going to go on. We're going to talk transportation most of the first segment tonight. So let's go on to another topic. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Transportation or lack thereof is also a subject of discussion that the council must address for the proposed public-private partnership called Viva White Oak, a 300-acre hub for medical and life science companies adjacent to the Food and Drug Administration campus near Route 29 and New Hampshire Avenue. The developer, Perconti, is frustrated over environmental issues and restrictive covenants on their land that Montgomery County officials say could result in court challenges to the project. Rich, last October there was a major rollout of plans and projections for the Viva White Oak project, which ended 4 years of planning between the county and the Global Development Company to build a $3 billion project. The council voted 6-2 in favor of the plan. Why are things not moving along?
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Casey. I think this is another one of those cases where you've got a major investment already there in the form of FDA's facilities. You've got the potential to really grow a life sciences cluster here and have some really good quality, mixed-use development. And I think you may have some market forces cutting against you here. You certainly have concerns that the process here, the regulatory process, is going to get in the way of some of those investments happening, and it may be scaring off some of the investors from coming in. I think, again, if you look at this county's economic future, we are shedding tax base. Our per capita income is trending down. We are not, if you project those trend lines out, we're not going to have the tax base to support the kind of schools we need in the future if we don't start attracting these kind of jobs to this county, and this seems like a place to do it.
This is the conundrum, because Henry, council member Mark Elrich says that the project should be about jobs, not residential development, and Perconti wants to build more housing first before they build office properties. So here's the conundrum. We don't have the jobs that can support the office buildings, but we do have the residents wanting to live here in Montgomery County.
Yes.
So what's the answer?
It's a mixed bag, I'll be honest with you, because really I think what's happening down there, and I know that the neighborhood, they're looking for more commercial and trying to get growth there for jobs that they don't have to travel as far to support themselves.
This goes back to the transportation system.
And
29 in New Hampshire Avenue
that's
is
what
a nightmare.
To get the commercial, you need the capacity on your road network, you
Right.
need the capacity on your transit system to get employees to and from these sites. And we haven't, over the years, made the kind of investments in transportation infrastructure that would really help us
and that's overall
serve those kind of
in
areas.
the county.
Yeah.
And really you look at, we don't have enough affordable housing, we don't have enough commercial jobs to support people staying in their community, in their area, to bring back the money and reinvest in the communities. The tax base is hurting us, especially when we have to have people go outside the county and the state to try to fulfill themselves. And those that can't do that, and we're going to be talking about a community later on, it becomes a big issue.
I want to wrap it up with Phil. Phil, the problem with some of these public-private partnerships is that neither party are on the same page. Right. And developers need to make money. They can't wait forever to build. So let's wrap it up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're just looking at this in the wrong way. We have to think in terms of what will ultimately the market do. If the market is there right now for residential, build residential. There will be someone that says, hey, you know what? We can locate jobs in this community to take advantage of the people who are there. We should not be deciding what that is.
Thanks, Phil. Henry, I want to go back to you now because I promised I would. And while we're on the subject of transportation in the county, the Washington Post ran an article this week about the lack of public transportation in the historic African American neighborhood of Tobytown. In 2000, when I was attending Leadership Montgomery, I went to several forums that promised to provide better transportation in this neighborhood into the community, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it is this community has been up and down with a lot of help, non-help, and progress, non-progress. And even when I was the president of Montgomery County Branch NAACP, we fought to have them some kind of transportation, and we got those shuttles for them. But then all of a sudden, when they had to cut the budget, what was cut first? That type of transportation. We were talking about it in your green room, if we'll call it that. And the biggest issue, what we were saying is that, investing something like $220,000 in helping them either doing Uber or a van and scheduling it, it would help them. However, as soon as the budget cuts have to come, what's first going to be cut? Them. They're going to be cut. And that's a big issue, and that's the history of Tobytown. We have to have people to understand that if they have the proper transportation for those children going to and from school, a lot of them want that education, but they also want the extracurricular activity, and it's hard for them to do that. It's also hard for them to try to go and get education to better themselves as well as work and provide for a family. You have some people there that just gave up because they have to travel so far, they don't have a car, and they pay too much in getting cab service to go to a bus, to catch a bus to go down to where they work. And it's difficult for them, and people don't realize that. This is a community that I feel needs to have that development, and they will have that growth, and they will have the opportunity to make that community better.
I'm glad that the Washington Post spotlighted this particular
You
subject.
need both.
And
It's not a hard problem to fix, Casey.
It's not.
This
hope
should
to
be
see-
easy.
I hope to see improvement in the future. When we come back from this short break, how bad is Metro's learning disability? Well, they want to prescribe Adderall. And get ready to rumble. The presidential contest gets crazier and crazier. Stay tuned. Got to be able to pay him. Welcome back. The DC area metro subway system has been in the news a lot lately. After years of secrecy, maybe the sunshine will have a curative effect. Nonetheless, it isn't reassuring to have Robert Sumwalt, a member of the National Transportation Safety Board, comment at a public hearing that Metro, historically speaking, has had a severe learning disability when addressing safety issues. Rich, you're our go-to guy tonight. We're learning a lot about the deficiencies of the system, and General Manager Paul Wiedenfeld has said that his priority is to change the culture at Metro. We have to get the infrastructure correct, we have to get the policies correct, we have to get the people correct, yada, yada, yada. Is that the right approach?
You know, I've said this before, and I'll probably say it many times. I think Paul Wiedefeld has the hardest job in Washington. He's got a system that has had years of built-up deferred maintenance, and the bill has come due. The money is not there to invest in this project and fix our metro system the way it should have been maintained all along. And when these problems are ignored over years, it's more expensive to go back and retroactively fix all that, as opposed to simply having kept up. He's inherited all this.
What about the message?
Part of the message about the people and the safety culture or lack thereof at this agency, I think he's dead on right. There's a serious cultural problem with customer service in that agency. You know, and I think he's got to work simultaneously on all of these problems and trying to improve the user experience so they don't have continued ridership declines, which cut even more money out of their budget.
And you know what's
So
going to
they're in a downward spiral,
let me go
and
to Phil on
it's
this.
going to take real genius to get it fixed.
Phil, is it just an internal problem? Or is there an external problem because of the three-headed Hydra system that we have of three of the governments, as well as a political system?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. There's no question about it. The idea that Metro would have to aggressively serve all the jurisdictions because they're all involved in it is a problem. But the big issue is this: it is internal. You need to start by having a good dictator who can tell everybody this is how they're going to operate the system. And then you go from there. And then you're not afraid to say, you know what, we're going to make the alterations this way, we're going to do the service design that way, implement it, make it go, and that's what you do.
Henry, you were involved with Giant Food Store,
Yeah.
and it was a corporation at the time that had excellence in its name. What is your take on all of this?
Well, just like we were talking in the green room again, it's management, and
right.
for a long time, mismanagement. Just like I was saying about Tobytown, you look at all the money that was wasted by the county in the Silver Spring project, dealing with that transportation issue there. Millions of dollars.
Millions, yeah.
And all we're asking for is a couple of thousand to help Tobytown. The same thing holds true with Metro. Metro should, a long time, gotten rid of the management that they had because they were not doing anything to maintain that. You have an infrastructure like that that is God sent, and then you don't try to maintain it. It's just like having a car and you driving it, and all of a sudden, over years it goes bad.
And you never change the oil.
I want to
change the
go
oil, the hoses and everything
Nate,
else.
Professionally, you're a professional, you're an accountant, you look at these issues all the time. What is your recipe for curing the problems at Metro?
I think the easiest way to respond to that is to say, stay behind Mr. Wiedefeld. He has one of the hardest jobs in the town, but he's doing a great job at it. I'm shocked that they didn't make major changes after the Red Line incident in 2009. I mean, I feel like the more you peel back this onion, the more troublesome it is. But I think they finally have someone in charge now who is demonstrated, even in the last few months, that he is willing to take risks and he's willing to make big changes to the culture, and I think that is the recipe for success.
And
it's difficult to ask for patience, but this is not the type of problem that we solved overnight. But I think Mr. Wiedefeld is the one who can get it done.
All right,
and
thank you.
he's absolutely right. And I'm glad you said that, because the man is working on it now. And look what you have, all the riders complaining because he's shutting down to fix a problem that is helping their safety when they ride.
Well, we've been talking about Metro for the last 6 weeks with all the problems, but
we'll
we've been
continue
talking
to.
about something for the last 7 months, and that's the presidential contest. And guess what? This week, the tumultuous Republican presidential contest came to a rather unsightly conclusion as first Senator Ted Cruz and then John Kasich suspended their political campaigns after being soundly defeated in the Indiana primary, thus all but assuring businessman Donald Trump the Republican nomination. While on the Democratic side, former Senator and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton sounded undaunted by her loss in the Indiana primary to Senator Bernie Sanders and spoke confidently of her nomination at the convention in Philadelphia. Phil, Trump may be your party's nominee, but the Stop Trump movement won't go away. How come?
Well, the fact is we had a lot of folks in Washington that had their own idea about what it was going to look like when the Obama era ended. And unfortunately for them, this is not their vision. Now, on the bright side, the good thing about Mr. Trump is he's brought in a lot of people, a lot of the old Reagan Democrat coalition, a lot of folks from the blacks and Hispanics and otherwise other groups that I'm sure my friends here will disagree will vote for him, but they will, and that's going to produce that winning coalition to get way over 270.
I know they will
Keep
because,
going, baby.
because Rich was on the panel with you the last time we talked about it. And Rich, when asked whether North Carolina State had a chance to win the NCAA championship, famed coach Jim Valvano said, "Why not? There are only 2 teams playing. Does Donald Trump have a chance against Hillary?"
Yeah, he has a chance, and I don't think Democrats would be wise to write this off and start acting complacently. But look at the challenges he's got to win over some of the huge, vast majorities of the public that he's actually insulted and demeaned and have unfavorable opinions towards him, not surprisingly. He's got a major challenge to win over minority votes, whether you look at the Latino communities, whether you look at the African American vote, women. We're describing a majority of the electorate.
Hillary.
Well, no one in history.
She has to win over too.
Let me finish. No one in history has had higher negatives than Donald Trump has right now, and he's 10 points worse than Hillary. So yes, Hillary has issues and challenges of her own, but I think this is a very winnable race for the Democrats. I think the Republicans have succeeded in nominating the one person who has the biggest likelihood of losing in November.
All right, well, let's ask our newest panelist and Republican
Yes,
activist.
sir. Yes, sir.
What do you think?
Well, I think that, going back to your first question, the reaction is to be expected when you have an outsider who wins the nomination. We are just in the wake of this happening. I think that in time, you'll see a lot of people take the approach that Speaker Ryan is taking, and that is to say, I'm going to hesitate to endorse him right away. I want to see him fall in line a little bit more, but I think in time, that will happen among the Republican Party. And let me also say, these conversations, here over the water cooler, in the coffee shops, always seems to be implicitly about, well, this isn't, who's the perfect candidate? This guy isn't the perfect candidate. And in an election, it's not about who's perfect. It's about between the two, who is better. And between Trump and Hillary,
It's pretty clear who's
choice
better.
needs to be made.
It's pretty clear to me who's better.
You were beginning to nod. You were beginning to hum. I
won him over.
Until he said that.
It's his message
Yeah.
when you own it.
Until he said that, because my mother would say, well, let me vote for who's the lesser two evils. I mean, because you have two choices. I agree with Rich, not because he's my friend, not because he's a Democrat, but because he is talking about someone who has, put together a group of people who will back her all the way to the presidency because of the fact that the Hispanics, the African Americans,
All right.
the women,
I
and
wanna
some of the
question.
younger
Yeah.
voters, see that they need to back someone who is not going to be an embarrassment.
Well,
This is
wait a minute.
traditional.
This is the hypothesis that everybody should be aware of. There is a vast group of people who are not happy. They believe
Yes.
both
Yes.
political classes,
True.
Democrats and Republicans,
Yes.
have let them down.
I
And they are
agree.
the same people that vote for Bernie Sanders, and the same people who vote for Trump. You got 30 seconds to wrap it up.
All right. Look, we have been talking about the worst possible thing, which is the traditional Democrat Party groupthink. It's not just the blacks here, the Hispanics there. They're going to vote this way, they're going to vote that way, and otherwise. Both Trump and Sanders have built unique coalitions. This is a wave, and this is going to be interesting.
Well, we're
Except
gonna
that the
have fun.
except that the Republican Party is so deeply split right now into about three distinct
You know, this-
factions.
There are a few
Democrats
loud
are going to be
people
a
in
lot
the
more
Republican
unified than
Party.
you
This
think.
is the one
I think
This is the one thing I
Democrats are
think
going to be
everybody-
unified.
I don't think the Republican
Yeah.
Party matters anymore. I think the Republican Party is dead.
This is pretty much.
This may have been the.
I don't know if they're dead.
They're on the critical
but
condition
they're-
maybe, but they're not dead.
They're on
Yes.
the table trying to be revived.
All right,
gonna be
we got to break it
They're
here.
bringing out the paddles.
We got another 5 months of talking about it, and stay tuned for parting shots. Welcome back now with parting shots, Rich Parsons.
Well, I want to end just kind of talking about some Maryland races that we've seen play out in the primaries and just offer a hearty congratulations to Chris Van Hollen. And I think he ran a fantastic race, really showed, I think, some real character. Also, Jamie Raskin seems to have come through the primary, and Anthony Brown over in Prince George's County. So we'll have some new blood coming into our congressional delegation, and I wish them all the best.
Henry Hailstock, your parting shot.
All right, well, I will just say for those who have not mentioned it, Happy Mother's Day coming up, and I hope that all of you really understand who is the backbone of this nation. It's our mothers, and really celebrate them in a positive way.
Thank you, Henry. Phil, your parting shot.
In keeping with the theme of the presidential election, I want to give a parting shot to both Carly Fiorina and Ted Cruz. They ran great campaigns. It's sad they won't be moving on, but they've contributed a lot to our country, to our party, and I'm looking forward to seeing them flourish in the future.
And welcome, Nate. I want
Thank
to
you.
give you the opportunity for your first parting shot
All
at
right.
21 this
Well,
week.
my first parting shot is a shout out to first-time voters. I was working the desk at the early voting in Germantown, and I had an individual come up to my desk. First-time voter, couldn't have been more than 18, 19 years old. And we discussed all the candidates and all the issues. And as we were talking, a gentleman who's running for the school board, which is a nonpartisan position, came up and was talking with us too, gave her a pamphlet. She went in and voted. And when she came out, she came back to me and said, I'm an independent, so the only vote I could cast was for school board. And I voted for that individual who talked to us. And as she walked away, I said, do you want me to take that palm card off your hands? Figure just trash for you and I can give it back to him. She said, no, I'm going to keep this as a memento of the first vote I ever cast.
All right.
So I hope that story. I hope that story is repeated quite a few times in November.
Well, I want to thank the panel for being here. I especially want to thank Nate for being here on his first time. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. And remember, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and you can watch us on YouTube. So for 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.